I'm excited to talk to my good friend today, Sensei Jay Speetjens, who's a fifth Dan and chief instructor at the Greensboro Kodokan. And this guy is a good friend in the Aikido world. I've known Jay Sensei now 20 years. In fact, the thing that I think of when I think of you is your dojo in your seminar was the second seminar or first seminar. I can't, it's one or two.
Well, for the last few years, the story's been, it was the second seminar.
Okay. All right. We're going to stay with that. It could be the second because I think the first was with Rodney Grantham in Boone, and then yours was the second. But I remember going up to your school. You might have been a Nidan at the time, and you're the head of your organization, and your primary teacher, Tanaka Shihan, was teaching, and I'll never forget. Paul Francis was there, who I knew from Cincinnati, and that's how I know you. So welcome to whatever we're calling this video chat about Aikido and life.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be with you, man. I'm looking forward to talking to you some today.
Yeah. And, since that time, our relationship has evolved. We've had you come teach at our dojo many times. We participated together in some friendship seminars that you've hosted in Greensboro. And I just got to say, it's been great. Practicing with you, learning from you. Your students are some of the most favorite Aikido people that I know. And again, the other thing that I want to mention that's pretty unique to you and your school is the level of Reiho and Reigi is exceptional. And we talk a lot offline, and that means a lot to me. So anyway, I just want to say that's how I know you. What's going on in your dojo these days?
So, we're in the same situation that everybody is, that, we're not practicing in the dojo on the mat. We've started Zoom classes probably, I'd say, end of March, about a week or two after we close the dojo space. We do 3 classes based out of Greensboro a week and 2 classes out of our sister dojo in Blacksburg. Actually 3 classes, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday there. So we basically got 6 classes a week on Zoom. And it's been an interesting experience. It's kind of, when thinking about this and just thinking about the conversation that was on Zoom last night about the Black Lives Matter protests and just the social injustice we've got going on and the heightened focus on it. I've been thinking a lot about how we apply Aikido in our personal lives. And even before the Black Lives Matter issue happened a couple of weeks ago, or reoccurred a couple of weeks ago, and at least into the forefront of mainstream media and mainstream thinking, there's been a lot of stress going on. And Aikido is really about learning how to be the best individual we are. I try to be the best me by practicing Aikido. And part of that is dealing with stressful situations. So been really focusing in on how we can do our Zoom practice to work on conditioning, work on fundamentals, but also keeping our community together, keeping people sane in these trying times.
Yeah, I think that's great. You brought up a good point too that I want to talk about for a second, and why we train in Aikido, and one of the biggest things we get from it is a de-stressor, if you will. And like you said before, what's going on now? My teacher wrote something like 6-8 weeks ago that our stress levels are heightened. People have been impacted financially, economically, health-wise. So take a deep breath, think before you speak, don't react to everything, and just, try to blend with what's going on. And that sounds very trivial, but I think it was really good advice. And you just touched on that. It's good to hear that you guys are getting together. And I know this because we talk, and I know a lot of dojos are doing Zoom still, and we're still I think we're a couple more weeks of that at the very least. And to me, that just is a sign of a strong dojo, a strong chief instructor, a strong sensei to keep people together, no matter what. At the end of the day, there's the physical part that we all love to do, but there's so much more that Aikido people that don't train in Aikido have no idea what we were talking about. And we're doing, you're doing a great job of that.
And you were talking about Tanaka Shihan. The way he thinks about Aikido, every Shihan has their own take on Aikido, and to stress, various aspects of what we train. Some stress one thing over another. And you mentioned the Reiho that we do at Greensboro, Kodokan. Part of that has to do because we are integrally linked with folks practicing in Japan. So we have a very direct connection to traditional Japanese culture and etiquette. But that's also not to say, that's not to say that in Japan there isn't a variety level of etiquettes practiced within various Aikido dojos. And Tanaka Shihan definitely stresses that that's a fundamental part of the practice. But so beyond the Reiho, this idea of practicing Kishin Tai or developing the three centers of the body, or the three centers of your being, the body, the mind, and the spirit, is really fundamental to what we focus on in our practice, what we're trying to get out of our practice, not just the physical techniques to use in a physical application.
Yeah, that's excellent. I don't know if I've ever asked you this, but I know you've trained in Japan, been training for a long time. What actually drew you to Aikido? What was that defining moment that drew you in?
That's really interesting. I was reading the Zen and the Art of books, and I think I got into Zen and the Art of Skiing, and there was some mention of Aikido, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And oddly enough, I think that the phrase was, it's the most dance-like martial art, which I know a lot of people who practice Aikido don't like to think of it as dance-like.
Yeah, sure.
And I just got the yellow pages out, and that kind of puts me in my, decade, or doesn't it? But there were still yellow pages, and there was a dojo in Greensboro, and it was a Tamiki style dojo, and I just showed up and practiced for a year and a half or so there, and just kind of got sucked in.
Yeah. And I think I remember your predecessors too, when you took over your dojo too. They'd been practicing a long time as well.
So I'm not sure if you really kind of know the local lineage, but John Grinnell sensei practiced with me in the Tamiki dojo. And at some point he moved to Japan for a couple of years teaching English and hooked up with Tanaka Shihan. And that's how Kodokan Aikido came, back to the United States.
That's cool. One of the things too, I remember from that seminar, literally that was 20 years ago, was just the movements and the posture of Tanaka Sensei, especially when he, towards the end of the seminar, and he was demonstrating Jodo or Aikido. Just, you don't see that a whole lot, anymore. And it was just very, like, I still remember the photo. I remember him standing there in probably, Judan no Kamai, and he just posing. Yeah. It was phenomenal. He's a phenomenal teacher, great practitioner, of course. And then it was really cool too, when we, I think it was I can't remember which friendship seminar it was, 2, 3, 4 years ago, where he came in, and then there was some more of your Shihan, I think, came over as well. That was awesome. That was so much fun to practice at that seminar. I want to ask you what, everybody has their own style or take or lineage or organization, but what's your favorite part about getting together, with other dojos outside of of Tanaka Sensei's line, if you will? What's your favorite part of that?
So favorite part is probably going to be hard to pinpoint initially or right off the bat, because there's multiple reasons why it's really beneficial. But probably to tie into something we talked about earlier, is dealing how Aikido develops you to deal with stressful situations. And I believe one of Demko Shihan's seminars in the last couple of years, he talked about trying to think of ways that you could practice Aikido both safely, but also put pressure on people so that they're being challenged to deal with the pressure. You know, if you just practice in a very relaxed way all the time, you don't necessarily get to deal with that more intense place where you have to really ground yourself and be centered and deal with what's coming at you in the moment. And going to other people's dojos, even if they're good friends, you know, and there's all the camaraderie and you know, relationships you build as you travel around, but you're always putting on somebody else's Aikido when you go to a different location, different seminar. And that takes you out of your comfort zone to some degree. So I think that's a valuable experience. So I value it.
I want to get into that in a little bit more on the future of seminars and what the landscape looks like, which, as we all know, is extremely uncertain, at least in the near future. But we'll take a quick commercial break and we'll come back with Sensei Jay Speetjens of Greensboro, Kodokan.
Imagine there's no illness. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to stay inside for. And no mass media too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. Ooh. They may say that I'm a dreamer, and the world
Well, we're back and having a great time here talking with my good friend Jay Speetjens Sensei. So I want to touch on Aikido and empathy. So talk to me about that. What does that mean to you exactly? Like how can Aikido make someone more empathetic?
So when we practice as Aite, as partners, you're literally taking somebody else's life and well-being in your hands, and you're also offering your life and well-being, because, you know, O-sensei would say that Aikido is, you know, life and death in a breath. You know, we always practice with safety in mind, but these are all potentially lethal exercises or practices or techniques, really is the right word, techniques. And over time, if you practice, you're probably going to get injured somewhere along the line, and you're probably going to unintentionally hurt somebody or be working out with somebody who gets injured. And it's a horrible feeling. You know, I've had a separated shoulder. I was part and parcel to the game. I signed the release form, but I know the partner, you know, the person I was working with felt bad about it, felt really bad. I didn't particularly like it. And I've worked out with somebody that I know I broke a collarbone or, you know, was involved in breaking a collarbone. So over time, you know, after maybe the first 5 years after you're, you know, just getting inaugurated and you start practicing, you know, as a beginner, quote unquote, you're going to start practicing at a higher level, a high enough level so that it becomes dangerous. And so I think you just develop a sense of putting yourself in somebody else's position, understanding somebody else's position, and then that perfectly relates into trying to figure out people that you come into contact on a daily basis. I mean, does that at all make sense to you?
Yeah, that does. You actually touched on something too, and I use this expression a lot when I teach, is just because you can doesn't mean you should. So again, like you said, you could practice safely. You can reinforce safety etiquette and protocols. You can constantly make it a part of your dojo, but we're not doing basket weaving. We're doing physical contact martial arts, and then very dynamic, like you said, at higher levels with advanced falling and throws and energy. So yeah, I think every Aikido injury I've ever seen, and they're few and far between, have always been, you know, accidental or just, unlucky. Somebody gets, just moved slightly wrong. It's never with malintent or maliciousness. So, so like you said, you have to be empathetic. I try to look at it as being empathetic to your partner's ability and what they're bringing to the practice. They could have physical limitations. They could be an older person. Like, it doesn't matter, whatever the case may be. I think you should always practice to that person's level, right? To minimize injury.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like to say that, I want you to practice as fast and as hard as you can while being able to do every technique. In other words, I don't want you sitting off the mat. So you need to be able to pace yourself so that you can physically get through it, every bit of the class.
Yeah.
Nobody gets hurt, and you can be focusing on whatever, at least one aspect of the technique that's being taught, and then practice as hard and as vigorously as you can.
Yeah, that's good.
I also think people should practice maybe their technique in slow-mo, but get up off the mat and be ready for the next one.
Right. Zanshin, yeah, and the workout. Yeah, absolutely. That's good.
But, it comes down to within that. Sorry about that.
No worries. Is he delivering uniforms? What's he got? Anything good?
I don't know. The main caveat there is within your partner's ability, both physically and stamina wise and technical ability, and then also within your own. But first within your partners.
Yeah, very good. Good point. You were going to ask me, I think we were talking about this offline, maybe with like some training with law enforcement, for example, because we have a lot come through our dojo over the years. In fact, one of our assistant instructors is a need-on and defensive tactics instructor for his department. And I think Aikido, we're a little biased, right? Because we practice Aikido. We know all the great things it can do for somebody. But I look at Aikido as, and I'm going to say this and try not to be biased. I'm just going to be blunt and direct as I can. But I really, truly believe in my core that Aikido is the best training for police officers on both fronts, right? I think it teaches them when they can't get to their tools, right, on their tool belt, because I think a lot of this challenges with police is when they don't get enough training a lot of times, and they don't have enough tools. So they're forced to use empty hand. And not to knock other martial arts, but if you're dealing with the public, and all you know how to do is punch and kick, it's probably not a great option if you're, because you only have two options, right? Punch, kick, and then knock the person down. Whereas, as we know, Aikido gives you the ability to subdue somebody with lots of options and lots of levels of restraint, while not permanently damaging them if you choose to, right? So I think physically it's a great art for law enforcement, and I hope anyone watching this that's in law enforcement looks at this if in their career. The second half of it too is back to what you said, this empathetic approach to what the art offers you. If you're an empathetic law enforcement officer, you'll be more compassionate. You'll be a better servant leader in the community. So I just thought of that. In fact, you find this text, but one of my students sent me this. I'm not going to get into it now, but you'll see it probably next week. But he says, do you think Aikido, or he goes, let me tell you exactly what he says. He goes, Sensei, serious question. Do you think that increased use of Aikido in law enforcement would help with police brutality problems? What do you think of that?
So absolutely. Probably on two levels at least. One is being able to stay centered, being able to really read a situation in the moment. And then, to be able to be in that position where you can see somebody else's perspective so that you can relate to it. Are you familiar with Thomas Crum? He does I think he calls it the magic of conflict. And he uses Aikido in his teaching, and basically talks about how conflict is the energy that creates something new. So you take a conflict situation and turn it into something beautiful, turning it into something positive.
Right.
So like the energy that's going on now with Black Lives Matters is an opportunity for us to create a more effective law enforcement apparatus.
Yeah.
And we know that the current injustices are beyond just policing. I think policing is the aspect of law enforcement or our judicial system that is most focused because it came out of just a murder and repeated cases where just police brutality, bad policing, done by a minority, of course, has been caught on video. But we know we also have issues within our court system and our prison systems. Yeah. But let's just take it for police that you brought up. So there's that aspect, and then there's something that's probably more difficult, I think, because I think you could get those first aspects, at least intellectually, over a relatively short period of time, especially if you're open to it.
Yeah.
The use of the physical techniques, I believe, require, regular practice, constant muscle memory, and, a certain depth of practice to be effective.
Right.
I do think, thinking in terms of making Aikido applicable, I would probably pick fewer techniques and really just do them regularly on a daily basis.
For sure. Touching on that too is, and again, I don't want to make this about comparing Aikido to other martial arts, but, I know BJJ is extremely popular. It's popular in a lot of law enforcement. And again, their whole deal is let's get to the ground. Well, as we know in Aikido, we want to remain standing and the person's going to end up on the ground. So I think you're always going to be at an advantage. So I don't think that's the best particular art for law enforcement if they can only study one. But back to what you said is, this is the sad truth, but, this is direct quotes from police officer friends, but, they carry a firearm. Most, again, I don't want to say all, most, 95% of police pull out the gun once a year to qualify. They don't practice regularly. They don't shoot regularly. All right. Same thing with defensive tactics. They go through rookie training and they learn some. They're not like us training weekly, daily in the physical parts of martial arts that they have to use in the job. So like anything, if they don't have enough practice, the technique is not going to be good. They're going to default to, bad things that we see. So I don't know what your thoughts are.
And what I understand from my connections within both the military and police forces is there's a tendency to have the flavor of the month. So they may go, Aikido might have been hot for a couple of years, and there might have been somebody who's in charge of the training that has, black belt in Aikido. And so they have an Aikido curriculum for 2 or 3 years. And then somebody else comes in and they have another art or style, and that's their focus. And so there's not a continuity of practice.
Yeah, great point.
The other thing about, I think, where Aikido should be applicable is some of the pins we do are not designed to be their most effective.
Right.
And so I really think if you're taking Aikido and you're putting it into a physical application, you're probably really backing out more to a historical jiu-jitsu technique, from my perspective.
Yep.
But anybody who's practiced Aikido for 20 or 30 years knows that you obviously start reverse engineering Aikido to be more lethal, to know how to make it more lethal, to know how to make it more solid. And so I think we're a great resource to be able to help law enforcement if they're so inclined to develop some techniques and some systems that would work for them.
Yeah, I think I want to close with this. And again, just to tell you, what I really, really love about Aikido, in addition to the physical practice, is it is a time where in your day, you're all getting together and there's no prejudice, no discrimination. Men, women, children, white, black, Hispanic, etc., gay, lesbian, it doesn't matter, straight. We're all there to do one thing and have fun. And I've seen it in my 20 years, and you've been training a lot longer. You see it. There's none of that. There's nothing that we see I haven't seen anyway, those issues that we have today that we're dealing with discrimination and racism. I don't see racism on the Aikido mat. I see smiling, happy people practicing an art they love together, and all of that disappears. If they have it, before they get on the mat, it goes away, at least when they're on the mat. I don't want to be naive to say that in the thousands and probably million Aikido practitioners in the world that not one of them is a racist. That would be silly to say. No. But I don't see it on the mat. And that's another beautiful thing about what we do, is that we just want to get together and harmonize and practice and have fun and, work on our health, our mind, our spirit, like you said.
I think that speaks a lot to the way you run your dojo. You definitely set the tone, set the etiquette for emptying your cup, coming on the mat, and just meeting everybody with where they are, right, and doing it in a joyful but focused, serious, you're really focusing in on, developing your technique, developing your abilities. I will say Aikido, you get a variety of personalities, and if you find somebody in your dojo, and I know you'll find somebody, somewhere along the line that you don't particularly like to practice with, those are the people that you want to practice. The people that are difficult, either physically or just personality-wise, you want to rub up against them and polish your stone, polish yourself. But I think the fact that you've got a lot of camaraderie in your dojo just really speaks to how you set the tone and set the culture there. And that's awesome.
I appreciate that. I really want to thank you for blocking some time tonight and chatting with me. I had fun. Great to see you as always.
Yeah, it was really good. We could go on for hours, I'm sure.
I know. We'll have to do part 2 later, but I hope to see you guys soon. Please pass my salutations to everyone in your dojo, and to let everybody know we're thinking about them, and we care about everybody, and we hope everybody stays happy, healthy, and safe as we weather this a bit longer. And we'll hope to see you guys on the mat real soon.
Yep, you too. Take care, man.